This is the Coach's Wife Life podcast. I'm Kristen Eargle, your host, a former TV sports reporter and fellow college football coach's wife. I'll go one-on-one with the strong women who are the backbone of college athletics and athletics of all levels. And now, Coach's Wife Life.
This podcast is brought to you by Ruler of Hope. Ruler of Hope is a nonprofit that supports medically fragile children. If you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation, you can use Venmo at Ruler-Hope or online at rulerofhope.org.
Hey there, I'm Kristen Eargle, and we have an exciting podcast ahead. But first I want to talk about something we all know way too much about, moving. Just the thought of that can bring an unsettling emotion. Well, I found a team that can take that load off your plate. It's D1 Relocation. This group can do it all. They can organize your move, coordinate with a moving company, and a trusted real estate agent. They can actually vet key household partners such as schools, insurance agents, physicians in the area. They can even help set up your Wi-Fi and water. It's incredible. So I've come to know this team, which is actually founded by a coach's wife. I think you should check it out. Whether you're looking to move now or in the future, it's d1relocation.com. Now on to our awesome podcast. It is my honor to bring Marta Hobbs on the podcast. Marta is the wife of Matt Hobbs, assistant coach for the Arkansas Razorbacks baseball team. Thank you so much for being a part of us.
Oh yes, my pleasure to be here.
Okay, these stats that I'm going to read are so impressive. And there's probably even more. I am going to read a few things you're probably like, there's more All-Americans. A slew of All-Americans, all SEC players, 19 MLB draft picks, SEC titles in 21 and 23 for Arkansas, been to the College World Series a handful of times. Prior to the Razorbacks, you guys were at Wake Forest. You've spent time at Missouri, UC San Diego. I mean, some pretty impressive things. And currently, as this is being recorded, the Arkansas Razorbacks are number one in the country.
Yes, we are number one in the country.
Marta, what makes
Matt, he says, don't pay attention to that ranking. It's like, don't even bother. But I think it's pretty cool.
It's very cool. Okay, so what makes him special?
So, we have been together. We met at the University of San Francisco. And I think the one thing that Matt just does a really good job of, he understands the game so well. And he's like, if you were to watch him during a game, he's as cool as a cucumber. It does not matter what is happening. Could be like baseballs flying over the fence. There could be the most tense, like 3-2 count with the game on the line, and his face will not change at all. He's like this steady Eddie in the dugout. And I think that's one of the things in which I think that he's developed that over time. But one of the things, he's just very consistent. He's like incredibly consistent. He knows how to coach players. He's incredibly good at development. He knows what kids need, and he'll listen to them. He never pushes them like too far. Like being safe as far as injury has always been like really important to him. And he just understands the game and is just like really consistent in his messaging and his demeanor. And I think that I think kids are just drawn to that. They can just respect it. And he's also the hardest worker that I've ever met in my life. He just works so hard. He's like, just gets to the office early. He stays late. It's really important to him. So that's just a few. That's a few.
I had the privilege of interviewing him on another platform that I work for. And the detail, it was incredible. The way he was able to explain and teach, that's something that stood out to me as well. Someone that didn't have the in-depth baseball knowledge to take a complex information. And I think that's a big deal, is to be able to teach things as well, too. That's pretty good. Okay, so describe Arkansas baseball, the stadium, the atmosphere for those of us who have never been to a game there.
It is really an experience. And as someone who has been to several different schools with varying degrees of success, Arkansas baseball is next level. I think that there's maybe only a handful of stadiums in the country that are at this caliber of packing the stadium full of fans. Like we will have 11,000 people in the stands tonight for a Friday night game against LSU. Now, granted, this is a huge matchup for us, but we might have 5,000 people on a Tuesday afternoon game at 3:00 in the afternoon. People just love baseball here. They love sports here. That's one thing about Arkansas. The fans are amazing. They're just amazing. they will show up, and the amount of support that the team gets playing here has got to be incredibly difficult for an opposing team. I will say that. But I also think that our fans are kind. There's like a little bit of just a little bit of the heckling, but mostly they're just really nice people and like really genuine. And I would like to think that teams coming here have a good experience, even though it's very intimidating. But it's just, you could see people lined up to get into the hog pen, which is our outfield area. People can bring like coolers and chairs, and they'll line up hours before the game just to get a really good spot.
Incredible. And I can speak to that as well. FIU, my husband's football program, where he's the deputy head coach there. We played at Arkansas football, and those fans were very kind to us. They showed us a great time. So did you envision this life where you mentioned you grew up not there in Arkansas? Tell us where you grew up. And did you ever envision this life, crisscross country, way far from home, coach's wife life?
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think I ever thought we were both from California, and I'm not sure if I ever thought I was going to leave California, to be honest. And as far as being a coach's wife, I used to coach. So I coached Division I women's basketball at the University of San Francisco. So that was my very first career. I played in college. I've always been incredibly competitive. That's what I would say. And so it actually makes sense if I'm not coaching that I married a coach, because I can kind of vicariously live that experience because I'm married to it. And I love sports. I love watching sports, all sports. I love football. Like college football is one of my most favorite things to watch ever. And I've always been a big baseball fan. So it kind of, it adds that I married a coach who is a college coach. It just makes sense.
And you have 3 beautiful children?
Yes, we do. We have 3 kids. Our oldest is Addison. She's 11. And then Taylor is our middle daughter, and she's 9. And William, who's our baby, just turned 8.
And when did you transition from going from a coach, an FBS coach, to or do you stay home right now? Do you work? What is your?
I stay home now. I do stay home now. So I've kind of done a little bit of everything. But when Matt and I met, we were both coaching. So we both coached at the University of San Francisco. He was the newly hired pitching coach, and I had been, let's see here, I'm trying to think of what year we met. I was the graduate assistant and then got hired on as the full-time third position, because back then in the early 2000s, they had just introduced a third position for women's basketball. So I got hired on, and I will never forget when I found out that we were hiring the pitching coach from UCSD. I remember going on their website and checking out his picture. He's kind of cute. And so I made sure that I introduced myself to him. But the reason, like the way I knew that I was going to marry this man is that he wanted to date me when I would wear sweatpants and my hair in a ponytail, no makeup. Like I was a coach. That's what you wore. You wore Nikes and sweats, and we still ended up dating. And I was like, okay, this one's a keeper if he will date me looking like this. Like I didn't even have to try hard for any reason. And so we both met coaching, which was at the University of San Francisco. And it was really, the timing wise, it just kind of worked out because I had reached a point where I was probably going to step away from coaching and look at doing a different career path that spring. And that spring, he proposed to me. And then that following June, which was just a few months, he got the job offer at Missouri. So the way it kind of worked out, I did not have to make this big decision if I was going to step away from my career to follow him. It just kind of worked out that I think I got into property management right before we ended up moving. So it just kind of worked. It all just kind of worked out.
Absolutely. Okay. Not every day, like I talk about in the podcast, is the perfect day where you're number 1 in the country. It feels perfect right now, right? But you do have the highs and lows. What would you say some of the toughest adversity you faced, and what did you rely on to get through those moments?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In addition to just the stress of the game in general, because I feel that stress so deeply as a wife, just knowing what my husband's going through and just being invested in the teams that we are a part of. Like they are everything in that moment. And so some of the really tough losses, there's a couple here. I'll talk about two different things. One is being part of a team that has the potential to do really great things and then not getting to do it. I can look at our 21 team. We were ranked #1 in the country, and we ended up losing at our super regional that we hosted at home. And just that feeling, that gut-wrenching feeling, you want it for your husband, but you also want it for the boys that are on the field that have just poured their hearts and souls into the season, and you just want to see them succeed. You want it so badly for them, and for the seniors who are never going to have that opportunity to maybe go on to what that next level is, which would have been Omaha. Your heart just hurts so badly for them. It just, your heart literally hurts. Like that feeling of just the gut-wrenching loss is like, you can feel it so deeply. So there's just the average adversity of just going stressful game to stressful series. But I would say the other is the coaching decisions that you will face throughout life, of getting a job offer and weighing if that is a good opportunity for you. And one of the things that Matt discovered is that it stopped being about him and what he would do as a coach, and it started to become what's going to be the best for my family. What is going to, like, if I make this move, is this good? Like, maybe it's more money, but is this going to be a better situation for Marta and the kids? So that is like one avenue that we've had to navigate, making these various coaching decisions throughout his career. And he's had the ability to coach at some amazing schools. And then there was other opportunities that came up. He interviewed, or he was going to, no, he did. He flew out and was interviewed with the Yankees. And that is a completely different ballgame. So that is like professional sports versus college sports. And it's like, okay, what does that look like? What does that look like for me? And what does that look like for my family to move out to the Bronx? It's like every decision becomes, what is going to be the best move? And as coaches, and I think you'll find this with a lot of college coaches and even professional coaches, sometimes it's not about the money. Sometimes it's not about what's the next best job that's going to pay me more money. Sometimes it's what is the best fit for me and my family? What's the best fit for me personally, career-wise? Do I enjoy where I'm working? If I enjoy where I'm working, I'm probably going to turn down an opportunity that would pay me more because I'm happy here. I'm happy here. We're winning. My family's happy. So those are just, I would say those have been the biggest decisions that Matt has faced throughout his career. And I mean, knock on wood, I feel like we've made the right decision every time. Like it's been the right decision to either turn a job down or to take a job. So it's really been a blessing that it's kind of worked out. And I absolutely love it here in Northwest Arkansas. Arkansas has been my favorite school, to this where we live, and the atmosphere. It's just been really, really incredible.
I'm really glad you brought that up. We don't often talk about that a lot on the podcast, but we feel this. It's kind of an unspoken thing, but you're right. I mean, these decisions that we make are really hard. And they're really, and one thing that's really hard is not like once you make the decision, 6 months later, something doesn't turn out perfect where you're at because you stayed. Mm-hmm. And then you just go, if I'd been there, or that's to me a hard part as well, sticking with it, knowing why you did it and continuing course and going, there was a reason we made that decision.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What's one thing that it helps you stay steady through all this? Like, what have you made a priority in the moving? You've moved to Missouri. You've, way over to North Carolina. I mean, you're raising kids way far away from family. I mean, California to North, Wake Forest to North Carolina. Right? Yeah.
Move. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a really good question. I would say just going all in and just making whatever situation we're in is going to be the best situation that we're in and making the most of it. And, I've been really fortunate that with every move, we've had other coaches who had wives who also had children. And I don't know if you could ask any other assistant coach's wife that same exact question, if every single time they moved, if there were other wives with children the similar ages, and we have just been so fortunate. When we moved to Missouri, some of our best friends that we still vacation with, we met at the University of Missouri, and we still are very close with them. And so every move that we've had, I've been connected with other amazing wives who've helped me adjust. And so that has been a really wonderful blessing for me personally, is just getting in touch with babysitters or hairdressers or activities for children, and really just embracing, like, once we decide we're moving, it's just, okay, we're all in, no second guessing, this is what we're doing, and just really being like a united front with our kids as far as like what are these moves that we're going to make, and with our family. If you were to ask Matt the first time he mentioned that we were leaving California to my mother, that we were moving to Missouri, she literally started crying. And it was, we go back, we laugh about it now. But it's very hard when you are making these decisions to uproot and move. And I was really concerned with our last move from North Carolina to Arkansas, only because our daughter had just started kindergarten. Our firstborn had just started kindergarten at this brand new school, and we had been talking about kindergarten for all of this time. And then we moved halfway through the year. We literally pulled her out of class halfway through the school year to move. And I was like, is this going to be okay? Like, how is this going to work? And then kids are so resilient. She was fine. She was like, oh, whatever. Like, okay, we're moving. So
Just right.
yeah, it's been really interesting. But I would say definitely just, being a united front, and once we make the decision, just going all in and sticking with it together, and taking all the steps together has really been helpful.
I think it would have to be, you would have such a unique perspective because you were a coach. Do you think it's helped you if you look around to other wives? Maybe, I mean, not that you don't have any struggles in your life, but you go, I've done this firsthand. I've done this job. I know how much time's away. He has to be gone that long.
Yes.
Does it help you?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's one of the reasons Matt married me. Actually, it's hard being a coach's wife. It's hard. It is lots of being a single mom, essentially. Like, you're doing all of the things. You're responsible for all of the things. They're missing some of the really big events. They're missing the play or the game or the family function. Like, it's very challenging. And I think that my perspective, having come from it, being a coach, missing the holidays, missing the birthday parties, like, I totally get it. I get it. It's not, you can't just like take time off for something when you're a coach. It's not that easy. It's not that cut and dry. And I feel like these jobs, more than anything, you're just so invested in what you're so invested in your work. It's like different than maybe somebody who does a different type of job, like banking or literally any other job. It's a little bit different because it's almost like your heart and soul is tied to, it's like, as much time as you put in is what you get back. And I think our husbands just pour into these teams in the development of these young men. And it's just so rewarding to them when it's successful, but it is like very much a part of their lives. It's not just like at 5 p.m. they come home. It's not how that works. And it's just having been a coach, and there are wives out there who are probably more understanding than I am and are very good, but I get it on so many levels, and I just understand, and I just know that I'm going to be doing a lot of things on my own. I'm going to be coordinating literally every aspect of our children's schedules, because he's not going to be here, or he can't be here, or he'll be on the road. And I embrace that. I embrace, running the household, I guess. I embrace that role. And it's very helpful for my husband to not have to worry about a lot of the minutia of day-to-day tasks for the family and the household and the kids if he knows that he can go and do his job and work really, really hard. And then the time that he does get to spend with the kids is really valuable for him.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why he's had so much success, that he hasn't had to carry some of that burden? You've really lifted that off it so he can have that laser focus? I mean,
I would like to think so. I don't know if I can take that credit because he's just very
what would
talented.
you say?
I mean, he's the hardest worker I know, but I do think if he were, and this is probably for any coach, having a partner who understands and can kind of take on a lot of the family responsibility that like normally it might be a little bit more split as far as who does what and when, and just being able to take that off their shoulders and being like, okay, I got this. Like if you need to stay late and do film, I got it. I'll figure it out. I will figure it out. And I think that's probably very helpful for my husband that I can do that for him.
It gets tiring though, because yours are playing sports and you're driving all over that region. Everybody's practice.
For the very first time this year, I have been so fortunate, but for the very first time this year, all three of our kids have practice on the exact same day at the exact same time. This is the first time it's ever happened. This is the first time. I've always just had like a little bit of window where I was literally in the car for 3 hours, but getting everyone to everywhere. And this is the very first season, Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Everybody has to be somewhere else in the city at the exact same time. So it's been really fun. But I will say another tip for all the other coaches' wives out there is whatever team my children end up playing on, I make very fast friends. And I try and figure out who I know who lives near me, because there is inevitably a time that I cannot be two places at one time. And I really do lean on the other parents and my friends and my kids' friends' parents to kind of help out. So that is one tip. Make fast friends with whatever team your child's on, because it would be very helpful.
That's the truth. And I'm doing a better job of that now that I have two playing sports, because they have those. And you in Fayetteville is actually larger than anyone would ever imagine.
It is. Like, it's really long. It's not really. We have like cities right above us and cities right below us, but the length,
east to west, travel teams' practices are not right there at the high school, the middle school. No. They're all over the place if you're playing travel teams. Yeah, very, very much so. You talked about a couple of things that I wanted to key in on. Is united front, y'all are all in. And so what does that look like? I know that you being a former coach, you know the importance of relationships with the players. And so for you and your family, what does that look like?
So specifically to Matt's team, is that what you're talking about? Arkansas baseball?
Yeah. Right.
So this is interesting. And I don't know how other teams operate or how football operates. I know Matt's players if I run into them, if I see them, but there is no scenario in which I am communicating with them on any level. So I don't know if that's different with other teams, but obviously
John, I'm guessing thinking like team building activities you guys get to be a part of, or just maybe that kind of thing.
No, I would say the wives, again, we know the players, we know of the players because we go to all the games and they are familiar with us, but there's, we don't have like, I know that football sometimes will do like family dinner night where all of the families will sit with the players. We don't have anything along those lines where we are like in communication with the players. So that might just
different sports and different programs do it differently. I didn't know if there was something, and baseball also might be a little bit different because you guys play a lot of games.
No, 50 something games every season. I'm like, this is insane. It's insane.
And when you think about that, they're already together. Your husband's there. There's not a whole lot of downtime he has away from that. We're only playing 11, 12, 13 games, whatever. I mean, is it 12 and 13? It depends on if you go bowl game and stuff like that. So it's a lot different. The pace of it. The midweek games to me for baseball would be so hard to get to.
The what?
Like
Say that again. I'm so
the
sorry.
midweek games, like if you're
Oh,
playing a
yes.
Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, that
Yeah,
would be hard to get the
yeah,
kids to.
we did not go. We had a Tuesday
Yeah,
game, and my daughter had practice, and
right.
then they ended up moving it because of the weather, and we couldn't go. And so one of the nice
Yeah.
things is that you can watch it on TV, which is super nice,
That is so
and
good.
which is great. But yeah, the one thing I have a lot of respect for you football wives is that because we have so many games, if we lose a game, it's hard, but you literally have got a game the next day that you have to bounce back for. I feel like football, a loss would just means so much more to have a loss. Like it's like a huge percentage of your total games is one loss. And that has to be incredibly difficult. I don't know how y'all do it. And how do you help your husband through a loss when they have a whole week to have to think about it and then get ready for the next game is incredible to me. I have so much respect for you guys.
And your stamina all year long with that many games has to be higher than ours, though. Like after 12, we're like, okay, we're good. We're done. We're wrapping it up. Bowl game, let's go. No, that would be tough. It is heavy, but you have things. I feel like the heart is just different, right? Everybody has a heart, and their heart is just a different heart, and whatever you're facing in life or whatever sport you're coaching. This is fascinating to me. You've coached, you've recruited
Yes.
players.
Yes.
And so now you're raising children who are wanting to play sports. I mean, and you're probably playing some travel sports.
Yes.
So how does that shape your perspective of, yeah, of course. I mean, if they want to pursue it very strongly and go in that direction, and then, you're watching all these parents who are handling it differently, maybe, or, how to pace it, like raising kids after you have been a coach recruiting. What is that like?
Matt and I laugh a little bit. We're like, we feel bad for whatever coaches try and recruit our kids just because we both understand the whole backside. Like we get it. We totally understand it. And so it just makes us laugh a little bit. But we have never pushed sports on our kids. We really wanted it to be something that they really wanted to do. And that's actually kind of funny because we have a son and people just like assume that our son is like this amazing baseball player, which cracks me up because he is like such a creative. He does play baseball, but like we're still working on some of the basics and he just turned 8. Like we're just still working through some of the basics because like we'll play rec ball, but he's not doing any sort of travel ball or anything like that. My daughter, she had to have like the difficult decision. She was playing 3 sports, but like nowadays it's getting harder and harder for these kids who are getting older to play multiple sports. It's becoming incredibly challenging just to play 2 sports right now. She's playing volleyball and basketball, and just the time commitment is one thing. And then coaches don't love it when you have to miss for another sport. And I think the older they get, the more challenging that becomes. Like when I went to high school, we could play 3, 4 sport, like however many sports you could possibly play, were allowed to play in high school. And now it's just becoming a little bit more challenging. And children, I think, are focusing on one sport as time goes on a little bit more at an earlier age than maybe we used to in the past.
Yeah. And that can be hard too. That can be hard on their joints and all kinds of things. But yeah, it is hard. You feel that pressure, early on. So you mentioned when you moved, she did really well. She was in kindergarten, so you haven't moved recently. But do you have any practical tips for moving or getting connected? You kind of talked about that, though, getting connected in a community. You really rely on the fellow coaches' wives. Other things you've learned along the way?
I would say I've gotten really good at, not really good at moving because I think I've just done it a few times now. So I think I've gotten better at it. The very first time we moved from San Francisco to Missouri. We moved out of a studio apartment. We were living right in the heart of San Francisco in this tiny, tiny apartment. We had like barely any furniture. So that was maybe the easiest move I would say we've ever done. The hardest move was moving from Missouri to North Carolina. I had an 8-week-old baby.
Ooh.
I had a 2-year-old and 8-week-old baby. And my husband was like, okay, love you, bye. And he literally left for his new job. And I was like, okay, I've got this. Like, I can handle moving. And it was so funny because I was just too young to understand that I had maybe options with moving. I packed the entire house all by myself. I think I got, how did I do this? I asked the softball team. I was the college that I was working at was Stevens College. And I asked the softball team if they would maybe, I was like, if I feed you pizza, would you come help me pack up this house? And so I had some girls come help me, but I was moving out of a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house by myself with an 8-week-old, packing my own boxes, and my husband was gone. And I was like, I love you so much. And I'm also, this is the hardest part of this job, is the fact that they literally, they go and they're in it. Yeah. They're like literally putting on a brand new shirt. And if you're recruiting, you are changing into your new school shirt and going. That's it. It's that fast. And so the easiest move was our last move, because I was like, oh, we have the option for a company to come in and pack our stuff for us. Outstanding. That is what we're doing. And I would say personally, the best advice I can maybe give for anyone who's moving is, right before we left North Carolina, we did all the interior paint on the house, which was like something I had wanted to do, and I just never got around to doing it. And after we did it, like when we were putting it on the market, I'm like, this house is beautiful. I should have done this right when we moved in. Why did I wait so long to paint the house? And it was just one of those things where we had 3 kids under 5 at that point. And I was like, I don't have time to like move furniture, like do all the things. Until like I was working from home at the time. I was like, I don't have time to paint. And so when we moved to Arkansas, the very first thing when we bought our house was, we're painting the entire interior before we move in. So that was like my only thing that I was like, okay, we're getting better at this. We had our stuff packed for us this last move, and we painted the house before we moved in. So just like stuff to learn as you go. Yeah. And then definitely getting connected with other wives has been so, so huge.
Do you have, talking about wives, do you have something you keep up with across the country, or a mentor, or just someone that you can just go, oh, I'm gonna have one of those weeks?
So I'm really blessed. When I was mentioned our good friends from Missouri, that's the Jacksons, and Talia is Coach Jackson. He's actually the head coach at Missouri now. They are good family friends, and we were at Missouri together at the same time, and we're very close. Like our kids are staggered. Like she had a baby, I had a baby, she had a baby, I had a baby, I had a baby. So our kids are very close in age, and she is just always someone who, like, we've been through everything. We got married within a month of each other. Like we both moved there, engaged, and then got married within the year. Like it was just, we had a lot of very similar life experiences. And she is someone who I always know I could talk to. And then our head coach here, Dave Van Horn, his wife is Karen. And she is just like, if there was a gold standard of coaches' wives, it's Karen Van Horn. She is just the most generous, kind, just amazing human being. And I would definitely consider her my mentor. If there's anyone that I look up to as far as what do I want to be like someday as a head coach's wife, it's her. She's just incredible. And she's so giving with her time and her energy, and making sure that we have everything we need and that we're taken care of. We have like a coach's wives group text that we are constantly communicating on. We are all very we all really like each other. Like we're so lucky here. We all like each other. We all have kids similar ages. Like it's a really good group.
And do you ever get to go to the road games?
What was that?
Do you ever get to go to the road games? Do you ever go pick a weekend and go away?
Yes, we have tried to do that every year. And this year we're doing it again. So we call it the Coach's Wives Trip is what we call it. And it's just the mamas, the babies stay home, which is nice. So just us wives go on a trip, and it's really fun. We've done it every year, and we're going again this year.
And then for the Omaha trips, do you take your kids up there to experience that?
We do. So we've been so lucky. We've been twice. Like it's hard to, even fathom being in a position to go in the first place. And the fact that we have gone twice while being here is just incredible. It's so hard to get there. It's just so hard. Like the number one ranking is awesome, but the gauntlet that is the conference play, like our conference is so competitive with baseball. It's just like every weekend is it's just hard to win. It's just hard to win. And winning on the road is even harder. It's like every weekend it's so difficult. And so to make it through the season and put yourself in a position for regional play and super regional play, like that's hard enough. And then to make it through a regional is super challenging. And then to make it through super regional. So just getting to Omaha is incredibly difficult. And I feel so blessed that we've been there twice with Arkansas. It's just incredible.
Incredible memories for your
And
kids.
They do go. And it's
kind of like this year.
Yeah. Yes, hopefully. And you never know how long you're going to stay. Like you show up and it could be, unfortunately, it could be 2 quick games like our first experience, or we could make it all the way to the quarterfinals. So you never know.
That's a bucket list. I've always wanted to go to Omaha. I'm going to have to go check that out one year.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about a little bit, keeping your husband encouraged, keeping the family kind of centered and grounded. Sometimes that's with jobs and change and making those decisions. How do you keep him encouraged if he's had a tough, baseball it can be so tough because hitters can go in slumps and, that it's so mental. It's such a complex sport. How do you help?
Yeah. One pitch or one hit could be the difference in a game. Like it's just amazing. I really try and be a good listener, which is very challenging for me, I might add. I feel like got lots of opinions that I would like to share. And sometimes I just have to be a good listener for my husband. If he even does talk or want to talk about maybe a difficult series or a hard loss, and he doesn't really need to hear my opinion about everything or even hear that it's all going to be all right, because I think intellectually, you just need to move on to the next game. But I think one thing that I really try and do is just be there to listen if he does want to talk. And that's one of the blessings of having a partner who is there no matter what, but to be able to just be a sounding board for him if he wants to talk, and just whatever it is, and just talk about it. And I could just be there and listen. And again, it's very hard for me because I do feel like there's lots of situations which my very professional opinion is valuable, but it's always not necessarily what he needs in that moment.
In the amount of years that you and I have been coaching coaches' wives through this, we've seen a lot of changes. One of those being NIL, one of those being transfer portal. How has it changed things for baseball the way it's changed for football?
There's probably a lot of similarities. The transfer portal has completely changed the landscape of recruiting. And I think you could probably agree on that. When I was coaching, if a player wanted to leave a program, they had to get permission from the athletic director or the coaches, and they had the power to say, well, you can transfer, you can't transfer to these schools. Like they had the power to do that back then. And now, and you had to sit a year of eligibility out. Like you had to sit out a year if you transferred. Yeah. If you went, so back when I was coaching, if you transferred, you could transfer, but you couldn't play that next year. You had to wait a year. And then there were certain schools you couldn't transfer into. And now with the transfer portal, it's just completely changed. Like you don't have to sit out. You can transfer within conference you could transfer within your conference and within your side of the conference. Like the SEC is divided up into the East and West, which is going to change, but you could have a player who you played against last year, literally on your team the next year. It's really interesting how that's changed. I think that it's very helpful, and that you could go get really well-established players that have a track record, and they can immediately come in and help your team. So there is that aspect of it. The one area that is, I think, a little bit more challenging is you still have freshmen that you are still recruiting because you need to develop them into really good players. And then really the portal comes in as like supplementing maybe an area, especially at Arkansas. And I know a lot of schools experience this. You don't experience this in football though. Actually, I just thought about that. In baseball, you can get recruited out of high school. So you might completely skip college. So we might have the number one recruiting class in the country, but we might lose 5 of those kids to the draft. And there's really nothing you can do about that. You can't tell a kid to turn down $1 million to come play in college. Some kids do decide that they want to play in college, which is great. So that's another added level of difficulty is you might have, 2 phenomenal players come in. You might have like a phenomenal catcher and a phenomenal shortstop who are going to join your team, but then they get drafted. And then you're like, okay, so do we need to, I don't know how they handled the song and dance of recruiting certain players, like thinking that they might get drafted. So they're almost too good. So then we have to bring it in. It's very complicated and they do such a good job of it, but it's so incredibly difficult. But the transfer portal has been nice and that you could, if you lose a player to the draft, you can go out and find a kid in the portal, which has been really nice. NIL, there's so much I don't know about NIL. It's just it's this very large, it's there. And I think what it was supposed to be, I think there's really great intentions with obviously compensating athletes for their name and likeness, right? There's this huge, but as far as I just don't feel like I can speak on it because there's just so much going into it right now. I think that it's incredibly, it's just something that everyone is doing.
Yeah.
It's a
complex topic. We could stop there, It's a complex topic.
It is here, and I think we're all navigating it. I can say that, but
I agree with that. It is. How do you stay connected during the season? What works? Are y'all texters? Do you have like a one night where you get to just Netflix? Or, is there any time that you get any downtime during the season?
I would say during the season, we've just kind of transitioned into night games, which is later nights for Matt. We've been, the beginning of the spring is always kind of nice because they have a lot of early games. Like they'll have 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock games, which is like amazing. If I had my choice, all of our games would be afternoon games. So it gets a little bit more challenging with the night games. It's just really late nights for Matt. We've got a pretty set routine that we, when we can have dinner together as a family, it's important for us that we do. Matt takes the kids to school every single day that he's home. That's one of the things that he does, that he can connect with our kids. He makes them breakfast every single morning. So he really, even with the late nights, he is still going to get himself up early to do all that with them. So that is a nice aspect of just him knowing that that's important and knowing that he's not going to be able to tuck him into bed, but he'll be able to see him first thing in the morning. So that's really nice. I would think that one of the things that we've been able to do, which has been really nice, is in the fall is normally when baseball players get married. It's in the fall and the winter. And this last fall, we went on 3 different trips, like overnight trips to go to weddings, which was so much fun. This was a former players. And so that was one thing that we really just made a priority this year. It was like, if we get invited and it's a wedding that we want to go to, we're going to make it happen. We're going to figure out a way to do it. And so he and I got to take several little mini vacations, just the 2 of us, which was really nice. And it's usually in the off season. You would be hard pressed to find a baseball wedding during season that we would be able to attend. So that's one day. And we try and do date nights, but I have to be honest with you, their games are Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's not really any day that is free. Between kids' sports and games, it's like every single night there's something going on. So, but yeah, we like to cook together. Matt is an incredible chef. He does probably, when he's home, he does 95% of the cooking in this household. Really? And so when he's gone, it's like, okay, we're having cereal for dinner tonight. I didn't think of some great menu item to make. but yeah, so I would say we try and spend time together. We'll cook together. We try and find some show that we both enjoy watching that we can watch one episode a night if we don't fall asleep, etc. So that's one way we can connect.
What do you enjoy doing to recoup, to recharge your battery?
Me personally,
Yes.
I try and work out a lot. We also work out together. That's one of the things that we've always done. And I think it's just former athletes. That's always been a priority for us. And so whether we're traveling on the road or on vacation, we're going to the gym together every single day or sometimes twice a day, depending on what that looks like.
So you lift and run and all the things.
Yes, lift. I just started running again. I'm just convinced that my body is not built for running. But lifting, yes. Lifting 100%.
I got to do this. Eventually, I'm going to start my New Year's resolutions. I'm getting there. It's closing on April. I'm going to get going. I'm going to do it.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
I know. Okay, so last question for you before we hit rapid fire. What are some of the most rewarding aspects to you about being a coach's wife?
Okay, so I love this question, and I think I alluded to this earlier, but I'm incredibly competitive. Like I personally am super competitive. I'm competitive with myself. Don't invite me to game night because I'm gonna find a way to win. Like that is my personality. I like to win, and so rewarding for me is that like this is my team. It's obviously my husband's team that he coaches, but they are like this is my team. I know all the players. I root for them, and I enjoy the sport so much. Like I just enjoy it. So it's so fun for me to be able to be a part of that. It's really special program. Dave Van Horn runs an incredibly respected program. All of the players are just, they're classy and they work hard and you just want to root for them to win. And so I love being a part of it. I just love it. And, and the other part of that is since it's like this non-conventional job, there's not like a 9 to 5. It's like, if Matt needed to be somewhere at 11 o'clock in the morning, he can just go be there. Like he doesn't have to, there's no like official process. And if he needs to leave early, if he can catch a game that happens to be at 4 o'clock, then he can try and catch the game at 4 o'clock. So that is the flip side of not having a conventional job is, there's the long hours. And then there's also, if I had to leave at the drop of a hat, I could, and it's not going to be a big deal.
That's good. That speaks to the culture there that Coach Van Horn has built. Okay. Rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What's the last book you have read?
Okay, the last book I read was Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult, and it was through my book club in the neighborhood because I joined a book club, which I love.
I love a book club. I never do blank at a game.
Okay, so that is a hard question for me, but I would say I never actively root for the other team to fail, if that makes sense. I would say I more just root for our team to win. So I try and put a positive spin on it.
I get it. If you could have dinner with someone other than a family member, current or from history, who would that be?
Oh, I would go with Taylor Swift. I am not a Swiftie personally, but after viewing her Eras tour on DVD, I'm so impressed with her ability to sing and dance for 4 hours straight. So I don't know what kind of workout regimen she's doing, but that would be a fun one.
The stamina. Okay, you get a night alone. What show are you binge watching?
Okay, so we really loved Stranger Things that was on Netflix. We loved all seasons of Stranger Things, and that is such a good show.
I haven't seen it yet. I'll check it out. What's your go-to meal to cook?
Tacos. Literally any Mexican food. Love it. Could eat it 3 times a day if I had to.
What sport can you beat Coach in?
I'm going to say 2, actually. Basketball, although he did beat me in horse one time, and he'll never let me forget that. Basketball, and then I am an avid pickleball player, and I can totally smoke him on the pickleball court, like destroy. Yes.
What would be your walk-up song?
Okay. Who sings that song? All I do is win, win, win. I don't know who sings that. Little John, maybe, I think, is on the track. It's an oldie, but a goodie.
It is an oldie but a goodie. Thank you so very much for your time.
Yes.
This has been so fun.
Thank you so much. This was really a fun interview and great questions. I've really enjoyed this.
This podcast is brought to you by Ruler of Hope. Ruler of Hope is a nonprofit that supports medically fragile children. If you'd like to make a tax-deductible donation, you can use Venmo at Ruler-Hope or online at rulerofhope.org.
For a replay of this episode or previous episodes, visit coacheswifelife.org and follow us on social media at Coaches Wife Life.